Hey dudes, welcome to Pepper's Pages. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about Verity by Colleen Hoover. Hoover is an author that I have not read anything by but have seen so much online about her work. I've not really had an interest because the genre that she writes is not really my thing. I mostly picked this because I finally got the nerve up to go to our local book club at the library where my husband works. And the ladies there kindly allowed me to pick the next topic for February, and I figured romance would be a good one, especially since it's out of my comfort zone and I'm trying to branch out more this year. When one of the ladies gave me Verity to read, I was like, okay, this will be interesting. I hadn't really looked too much into it. I've seen Hoover's name all over the internet, but I don't know much about her work other than she writes mostly like mystery, drama, romance, which this is not a romance. I don't know what I was expecting going into this, but it is far from a romance. It's just plain weird. This book follows Lowen, who is a lower tier author. She is published, she does sell some of her work, but her biggest gig comes when a much larger author, Verity Crawford, ends up unable to complete her most popular series, and so she is asked by her estate to continue writing the series and finish it out for her. From the moment that Lowen steps foot in the house, you can tell things are going to fall apart really quickly. She's there to collect notes, and she becomes involved with this family too deeply. I feel like if she had just kept her nose clean and ignored Verity, things could have been okay. I think I'm more frustrated at the end, which we'll get to in a minute. While she's staying with the family, she finds a biographical manuscript that Verity wrote before her accident and learns a lot of really disturbing things about the woman and is trying to decide what she's going to do about this and essentially save the family from Verity. I was very frustrated at the fact that she comes into this house not really knowing the extent of the situation. This family has been very private for a long time, it seems, and they have a lot of tragedy. And Lowen tries to present herself as like this down on her luck victim. She's going through the ringer and trying to put her life back together, and she digs her claws into this mystery and lets it take her over. Which made me sad because I feel like she could have been a very strong character that could have saved things, but by the end, I could not stand her character. I really could not stand her at all. Also, a lot of people said that this book is really spicy and it was far more disturbing than anything they've ever experienced. I did not get that. There are some pretty spicy scenes, but for the most part, they're just flat. I had no interest in it. I was not connected enough to the characters to really care about the budding relationship that was happening. Nor did I care enough to worry about their safety. I was more sucked into this for the mystery and finding out exactly what Verity did to get her put in the situation that she's in. I can't say this is a bad book. I did finish it in 2 days, which is pretty rare for me. I'm the kind of person that takes like a week or two to finish a book, maybe longer. So it did its job in keeping me engaged enough to continue reading it without much of a break, but it did not blow me away. This was not so high up on my ranking list that I would continue reading Colleen Hoover books. It seems like, from what people have said online, that she has specific plots that she just plugs people into and it's kind of the same thing. I don't know how true that is. I don't have the knowledge to have my own opinion on that, but I'm just not interested in the genre itself to continue reading her work. This is a very, very easy read. I feel like anybody could get into it as long as you look at the trigger warnings and the content that it has, because there is some very dark stuff in this that could potentially hurt somebody, but it was not the darkest thing I've ever read, like some people have claimed. Now, this may get into a little bit of spoilers, but I do want to talk about some of the things that frustrated me the most. From the beginning, as soon as Lowen walks into the master bedroom and sees the bite marks on the headboard, I was, no, that's weird. Now, of course, it works for the story, but the fact that she ends up mirroring this behavior It was too much for me. She starts falling in love with the husband purely because she's reading Verity's experiences with him, and it felt gross because you're reading it from the wife's perspective and Lowen is lusting for him. I don't know, maybe it's my own personal morals that are working against me for this, but it felt very yucky. Along the lines of the spiciness, that wasn't anything exciting. For me personally, I know a lot of people enjoyed it. Some people have said that this was not the best Hoover book, so I don't quite know where to stand on that. But it felt very gross. Just in general, the scenes where they're intimate together and knowing the fact that Verity is in the house was very uncomfortable. Not to mention the kid. The kid was there too. And the whole house could hear them. I don't know. That's just my own personal thing, I guess. I don't care how evil Verity is. You gotta have a little more respect for yourself, girl. Don't act like that. The other thing that really frustrated me, and I think what ruined the book, essentially, I was into it up until the point that the letter was revealed at the very end of the book. I understand fully what Hoover was getting at and trying to say about Verity. Why build it up like this just to reveal that note? Could you not have just left her as a monster? You spend this entire story trying to make her the villain and make me hate her, and then you turn around and throw the letter out and it's just like, oh, okay, like, you don't know whether to believe it or not, and I guess that's the point. But part of me felt like Hoover was trying to make her a victim after spending the entire story making her the antagonist. Not to mention that bonus chapter. I did not have a book with that copy. I happened to see one on TikTok. I read a little bit of it and absolutely did not care. I was just like, no. It completely ruined the book from what I read. I have no sympathy for Lowen. I lost sympathy for Jeremy. I feel like he is stuck in this really hard situation, not knowing the truth, not knowing who to believe. But at the same time, just your actions, man, that made me not care for you at all. Again, this book was not bad. It was entertaining. I enjoyed myself while I was reading it, even though I felt disgusting the whole time. I feel like it could have been laid out a little bit better. Lowen could have been a little more relatable. I don't know. This is just my opinion. Take it with a grain of salt because I don't usually read this kind of stuff. But this felt so off. It made me feel so gross. I don't know. There's just something about it that made it feel so off to me. It's weird. It's a weird book, I'll give it that. It stands out just because of that. The mystery behind it was enticing. Learning the stuff in her manuscript kept me wanting to continue reading it. But that's about as far as it goes for me. I really had no sympathy for any of the characters. Anyway, if you haven't read this book, go right ahead. I mean, you may enjoy it more than I did, especially if you're into this kind of genre, but that's my thoughts on it. I'll see you in the next video.